It happened quietly. No ceremony. No announcement. Just an empty space where Princess Diana once stood in bronze silence at Kensington Palace. By the time insiders began whispering, it was already gone. But what shocked royal watchers even more wasn't the removal, it was Prince William's reaction. According to palace sources, his warning to Camilla was not diplomatic, it was devastating. And it may have changed everything. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. For years, that statue had stood as more than metal and stone. It was a symbol not only of Diana's compassion, but of a promise. A promise that her memory would never be erased, never quietly edited out of royal history. Kensington Palace was not just a residence, it was her home. The place where she walked as a young bride, where she raised her sons, where she navigated heartbreak under the relentless glare of public scrutiny. To remove her statue from that ground was not a logistical adjustment. It felt like a shift in narrative. The secrecy intensified the shock. Palace staff reportedly arrived to find instructions already in motion. No public explanation. No prior consultation. Just a directive executed with clinical efficiency. Whispers traveled through corridors faster than official clarification. Some assumed maintenance. Others sensed something deeper, a recalibration of royal storytelling. When observers began noticing the absence, questions mounted. Why now? Who authorized it? And perhaps most importantly, who believed this decision would go unchallenged? Insiders point toward Camilla's involvement, suggesting the move was positioned as part of broader aesthetic changes within palace grounds. A modernization effort, a spatial reconfiguration. Yet timing is everything in royal symbolism. Removing Diana's statue in an era when the monarchy is redefining itself felt less like coincidence and more like calculation. Whether intended or not, the optics were explosive. When Prince William was informed, sources describe a reaction that stunned even seasoned aides. He did not erupt publicly. He did not issue statements. But behind closed doors, his response was described as firm, controlled, and unmistakably stern. This was not merely about heritage. It was about honor. About a son defending the permanence of his mother's place within the institution that once failed her. The emotional weight of Diana's legacy is not abstract to him. It is personal history etched into every corridor of Kensington. Tension that had long simmered between modernizing forces and unresolved past trauma suddenly surfaced. The monarchy has attempted to balance continuity with progress, but certain symbols are untouchable. William's alleged warning to Camilla was not theatrical, it was deliberate. A boundary drawn with precision. An assertion that some elements of royal memory are not negotiable, regardless of evolving leadership. Those close to the situation suggest that this moment exposed a deeper fault line between preservation and reinvention, between generational authority and inherited grief. The removal of a statue became a confrontation over respect, and as palace advisors scrambled to contain speculation, it became increasingly clear that this was not simply about bronze relocated from one courtyard to another. It was about legacy, about loyalty, about whether the monarchy can truly move forward without reckoning with the emotional debts of its past. And if this decision underestimated the depth of William's resolve, it may have awakened a force inside the future king that the palace can no longer ignore. But to understand why this moment ignited such fury, we have to revisit the fragile legacy Diana left behind, and the wounds that never fully healed. Princess Diana may be gone, but inside the monarchy, her presence never faded. Every public appearance, every charitable gesture, every maternal smile cast a long shadow over the institution she once shook to its core. For William, that shadow isn't political, it's personal. And when that legacy appeared threatened, it wasn't strategy that surfaced. It was something far deeper. Diana's memory has never rested quietly within palace walls. Outside, she became myth, the people's princess, frozen in time at the height of empathy and rebellion. Crowds still gather where she once stood. Her name still ignites emotion that newer chapters of the monarchy struggle to command. Inside the institution she challenged, however, her presence has always been more complicated. Revered publicly, yet delicate privately. Celebrated, yet entwined with discomfort. Her life redefined royal vulnerability, and her death reshaped public expectations forever. For William, that legacy is not a chapter in history books, it is the foundation of his identity. He grew up watching his mother navigate affection and isolation in equal measure. He witnessed her compassion dismantle centuries of emotional distance between crown and people, and he felt the rupture when she was gone. Protecting her memory became more than tribute, it became purpose. Every initiative he undertook, every tribute he supported, carried an undercurrent of devotion to ensuring she would not be reduced to a footnote in royal evolution. The statue at Kensington Palace symbolized that promise. Positioned in the place she once called home, it stood not only as art but as acknowledgement. It declared that Diana's impact was permanent, that her story would not be quietly rewritten to ease institutional tension. For William, its presence was grounding, a tangible reminder that despite modern reforms and shifting leadership, his mother's spirit remained embedded in royal history. Camilla's position within this legacy has always been layered with complexity. Acceptance came gradually, carefully cultivated over years of public recalibration. Yet the comparison to Diana never truly disappeared. It lingered subtle, persistent. Any action perceived as diminishing Diana's memory risked reigniting old wounds. Not because reconciliation was impossible, but because grief does not operate on political timelines. Public sympathy has always leaned heavily toward Diana. The monarchy, aware of that emotional loyalty, has walked a delicate line between honoring the past and embracing the present. Modernization demands evolution. But evolution cannot appear as erasure. That is where tension thrives, in the space between honoring legacy and redefining narrative. The removal of the statue did not simply adjust landscaping. It unsettled a symbolic balance carefully maintained for decades. William's loyalty has never been loud. It has been steady, quiet, unwavering. He does not publicly weaponize memory, but neither does he allow it to be diluted. Those closest to him describe a calm exterior that conceals fierce protectiveness. When he learned of the statue's removal, it was not institutional politics that stirred him. It was instinct. The instinct of a son who once promised himself that his mother's voice would never fade. This moment carried more than symbolic consequence. It reopened emotional fault lines long suppressed beneath royal decorum. The monarchy may strive to look forward, but it cannot escape the gravitational pull of Diana's legacy. And as tension simmered behind palace doors, it became clear that what followed would not be a polite disagreement. Because when loyalty collides with protocol, even the calmest prince can become a storm. There was no press release, no royal announcement. Just a discreet internal directive removed the statue. According to insiders, it was framed as relocation. But relocation to where? And why now? When William learned of the decision, he reportedly didn't ask questions. He issued a warning, one that insiders say carried unmistakable steel. The order, sources claim, arrived not as a dramatic decree, but as a routine memorandum circulated among senior palace staff. The language was clinical: temporary repositioning, structural evaluation, aesthetic restructuring of the gardens, words designed to soften impact, to make removal sound like maintenance rather than meaning. Yet the absence of transparency immediately fueled unease. When symbolism defines monarchy, nothing is ever just landscaping. Timing amplified suspicion. The decision came at a moment when the royal family was carefully recalibrating its public image: modern, streamlined, future-focused. Relocating Diana's statue during such recalibration felt less accidental and more strategic. Was it about cohesion? About unifying the narrative around the present leadership? Or was it an attempt to subtly shift attention away from a legacy that still commands unparalleled public affection? William was reportedly informed after the directive had already been set in motion. Not consulted. Not briefed in advance. In palace dynamics, that distinction matters. Insiders described the moment he learned of it as a turning point, not explosive, but chillingly decisive. He did not raise his voice. He did not leak outrage. Instead, he summoned clarity. His reaction, aides suggest, was controlled yet intense, the kind of composure that signals boundaries have been crossed. The alleged confrontation between William and Camilla remains shrouded in confidentiality, but whispers describe an exchange stripped of pleasantries. No grand accusations, no theatrical declarations, just a firm articulation that his mother's memorial was not a variable in aesthetic planning. Those present reportedly sensed something historic, unfolding not merely disagreement, but a generational shift asserting itself. William was no longer the grieving son standing quietly in the background. He was the future king defining limits. Emotional undercurrents ran deep. For some, the situation echoed past tensions, decisions made without Diana's voice considered, adjustments justified as necessary for stability. To William, this may have felt hauntingly familiar, a pattern repeating under different leadership. The removal, framed as procedural, began to reveal deeper layers. This was not about garden layouts. It was about whose memory anchors the monarchy's moral center. Staff who initially viewed the directive as administrative began to recognize its broader implications. Advisors sensed potential fallout not from the public alone, but from within. The tension was no longer theoretical. It was personal. Each conversation carried the weight of unresolved history. Each silence hinted at alliances forming behind closed doors. The first unmistakable sign that this was not routine came in the tone of William's response. Sources describe it as a warning not dramatic, but unmistakably final, a line drawn with precision. In that moment, it became evident that the statue's absence had triggered something far greater than debate over placement. It had reopened wounds that protocol alone could not contain. Because behind palace decorum lies something far more volatile: family history that refuses to stay buried. Camilla has spent decades navigating one of the most complicated roles in royal history. From public skepticism to eventual acceptance, her journey to the queen consort title was anything but smooth. But removing Diana's statue may have reopened wounds many believed had finally scarred over. Was this a calculated move or a misjudgment that underestimated William's devotion? Her path to legitimacy was neither swift nor forgiving. For years, she existed in the margins of royal life, viewed through the lens of a fractured marriage and a public tragedy that refused to fade. Acceptance did not come easily. It was earned slowly, appearance by appearance, handshake by handshake. Palace strategists worked tirelessly to soften her image, reshaping perception from controversy to continuity. Charitable initiatives were highlighted. Public warmth was amplified. The narrative was carefully constructed, stability restored, past reconciled. Yet no amount of strategy could erase the persistent comparison to Diana. It lingered in headlines, in public memory, in the subtle undertone of every royal gathering. Camilla stepped into a role shadowed by myth. And although time dulled the sharpest edges of criticism, the emotional loyalty to Diana remained fierce. Any decision that even hinted at diminishing that legacy carried undeniable risk. The removal of the statue was not an isolated act in that context. It intersected with years of delicate positioning. Advisors, insiders claim, had urged caution. Symbolism inside the monarchy is not neutral, it is currency. Touching a memorial tied so deeply to public affection was bound to spark interpretation, whether intended or not. Was it a move to redefine the palace aesthetic? Or was it part of a broader recalibration, a subtle attempt to center the monarchy around its current leadership? Public reaction, though initially speculative, began to simmer. Online forums filled with questions. Commentators revisited old tensions. The idea that Diana's presence could be physically reduced from Kensington grounds ignited emotional responses that modern royal planning may have underestimated. Camilla's vulnerability in this moment was not merely personal, it was political. Every step forward she had taken toward public acceptance suddenly felt precarious. Then came William's warning. Not loud, not theatrical, but unmistakable. Insiders suggest it challenged more than the decision itself, it challenged the authority behind it. For a future king to draw a firm line on an issue so symbolic signals a shift in internal dynamics. Camilla, once navigating criticism from outside the palace, now faced resistance from within its future. This was not simply a clash of personalities. It was a collision of legacies. Camilla represents endurance and reinvention within the monarchy's structure. William embodies continuity of a different kind, one rooted in preserving his mother's moral influence. When those narratives intersect, tension becomes inevitable. Each carries legitimacy, Each carries emotional weight, but only one commands the loyalty of a son defending his mother's place in history. The question lingers: did Camilla anticipate the depth of that response? Or did she assume that years of gradual reconciliation had finally stabilized the emotional landscape? Either way, the incident exposed how fragile that equilibrium remains. Authority within the royal family is layered, complex, negotiated, and when symbolic gestures are perceived as overreach, power lines become visible. Camilla's position, though strengthened over time, remains intertwined with perception. Her vulnerability lies not in title but in memory. And as the palace absorbs the reverberations of this decision, it becomes clear that William's response transcends aesthetics or protocol. But William's reaction wasn't just about symbolism, it was about boundaries. Sources claim that when William confronted Camilla, his words were not loud, they were final. This was not about hierarchy. It was about legacy. About a son defending his mother's place in history. Insiders describe the exchange as one of the most tense moments behind palace doors in recent years. And William's message was clear: some things are not negotiable. The meeting reportedly unfolded without spectacle. No raised voices echoing down corridors. No dramatic ultimatums. Just a controlled intensity that made the air feel heavier than protocol could contain. William did not approach the conversation as a subordinate speaking to a senior royal. He approached it as a guardian of memory. Those close to the situation suggest he was direct, unwavering, and precise. The removal of Diana's statue, he made clear, was not an administrative detail. It was a line that should never have been crossed. He insisted that his mother's memorial remain untouched, not relocated quietly, not reshaped for convenience, not reduced to a footnote in evolving palace design. For him, it symbolized something sacred. Diana's story was woven into the monarchy's modern identity, whether comfortable or not. Attempting to adjust that symbol felt like an attempt to dilute her influence, and William's warning carried emotional gravity that transcended rank. What made the moment powerful was not volume, but restraint. Royal training conditions composure under pressure. Emotion is expected to be managed, never displayed recklessly. Yet insiders describe a visible shift of firmness edged with personal fire. This was not a prince speaking in rehearsed tones. This was a son confronting a perceived erasure. The contrast between royal decorum and suppressed anger made the exchange even more striking. It was controlled rage, measured but unmistakable. This confrontation also signaled something larger, a generational transition unfolding in real time. William is no longer the young royal navigating inherited tension quietly. He stands as the monarchy's future, and in that role, his voice carries weight. By asserting his position so decisively, he demonstrated that authority is not only inherited through titles, but claimed through conviction. The message was subtle yet profound. The direction of the monarchy will reflect his boundaries as much as tradition. Palace staff, caught between allegiances, reportedly felt the tremor immediately. Advisors who once mediated delicate narratives now faced a shift in internal balance. Loyalties became nuanced. Some interpreted William's stance as protective and necessary. Others viewed it as confrontational. Regardless of perspective, the ripple was undeniable. A private disagreement had transformed into a symbolic test of leadership. The emotional undertone ran deeper still. Diana's absence has always lingered within royal relationships, unspoken yet present. Her memory influences public perception and internal dynamics alike. By challenging the statue's removal, William was not only preserving history, he was reinforcing his mother's permanent place in the monarchy's moral narrative. In doing so, he also reminded the institution that the future king will not shy away from defending that narrative. The consequences extend beyond this single incident. Authority inside the palace is often expressed quietly, through subtle recalibrations rather than public declarations. William's warning marked such a recalibration. It redefined what can be adjusted and what must remain untouched. It clarified that modernization cannot come at the cost of foundational memory. And when the future king draws a line, the monarchy must decide which side it stands on. For the public, it was speculation. Inside the palace, it was division. Advisors debated optics. Loyalties quietly surfaced. Some believed modernization required difficult decisions. Others argued that touching Diana's memory was a dangerous miscalculation. The statue's removal had become more than symbolic, it was now a test of power. Within the inner corridors of the monarchy, conversations reportedly shifted from logistical explanations to strategic survival. Senior aides found themselves split, not over facts, but over fallout. One faction maintained that evolution is essential, that reshaping palace spaces signals progress, unity, and a forward-looking reign. Another warned that symbols carry emotional weight far beyond their physical presence. Diana's legacy is not ornamental. It is deeply embedded in public consciousness. Altering that presence risked reopening chapters the monarchy had worked tirelessly to stabilize. Media inquiries intensified quickly. Questions that began as garden redesign speculation evolved into pointed commentary about respect and authority. Royal correspondents, sensing tension, began probing for clarity. Silence, once a reliable shield, suddenly amplified suspicion. Each unanswered question fed narrative momentum. Advisors scrambled to craft responses that neither admitted internal disagreement nor inflamed public sentiment. It was a balancing act performed on increasingly fragile ground. At the center of this quiet storm stood King Charles, reportedly placed in an unenviable position. On one side, his wife navigating a delicate tenure defined by hard-earned legitimacy. On the other, his son, the future king, asserting moral authority over a deeply personal issue. Any visible alignment risked appearing partisan within his own family. Remaining neutral carried its own dangers. The monarchy thrives on cohesion. Yet this moment exposed fissures that could not be easily disguised. Public sentiment appeared to lean heavily toward William. Sympathy for Diana remains powerful, almost instinctive. The narrative of a son defending his mother resonates far beyond palace walls. Advisors understood that ignoring this emotional alignment could erode trust. Strategic discussions reportedly began circulating about possible reinstatement, or at least clarification. Not as capitulation, but as recalibration. The optics of restoration could signal unity rather than retreat. Yet fear lingered beneath those discussions. The Diana era was one of the monarchy's most turbulent chapters. Reigniting those tensions even symbolically could invite scrutiny that reaches far beyond a statue's placement. The institution's image, carefully reconstructed over years, felt precariously balanced. Every decision carried implications for credibility and continuity. Inside private meetings, language shifted subtly from aesthetic reasoning to preservation of stability. Advisors weighed whether doubling down would demonstrate strength or stubbornness, whether acknowledging misjudgment would appear weak or wise. The debate transcended landscaping. It became a referendum on leadership style, generational authority, and the monarchy's ability to navigate emotional history without appearing divided. As the pressure mounted, one truth became undeniable. This was no longer about bronze or gardens. It was about who commands the moral narrative of the crown. A decision loomed behind closed doors, heavy with consequence. Whichever direction they chose would signal more than resolution. It would reveal where power truly resides within the evolving monarchy. But beyond politics and perception, there was something far more personal at play. For William, this was never about bronze or stone. It was about his mother's presence in the place she once called home. Removing that statue wasn't just architectural, it felt like erasure. And insiders suggest that behind his stern warning was something raw, something unresolved, a son still guarding the memory of a woman the world refuses to forget. Kensington Palace is not just a royal residence in William's story. It is the backdrop of his childhood, the corridors where he once ran ahead of security, the gardens where Diana laughed without ceremony, the rooms that carried both warmth and quiet strain. Those walls witnessed a young boy watching his mother navigate adoration and isolation in equal measure. They also witnessed the day that world shattered. When Diana was gone, Kensington did not simply become a building. It became a container of memory. The trauma of losing her was not confined to public mourning. It unfolded privately, in silence, in the awkward stillness of palace life resuming as if history had not fractured. William grew up under the weight of that loss. Cameras captured composure. Grief remained largely unseen. In the years that followed, he matured into a figure defined by steadiness. But beneath that steadiness lives a memory that never faded. The statue at Kensington symbolized more than tribute. It represented continuity, a promise that her presence would not be quietly absorbed into institutional reshaping. He once pledged, according to those close to him, that Diana's compassion and courage would remain central to his own path. His charitable focus, his public tone, even his deliberate emotional accessibility all reflect that influence. Protecting her legacy is not performative. It is foundational. So when the statue disappeared from its place, the reaction was not about aesthetics. It was psychological. A symbolic removal can echo like a personal loss. There are emotional parallels that cannot be ignored. Years ago, Diana felt marginalized within the system. Decisions were made around her rather than with her. Now, a decision affecting her memory was reportedly made without William's involvement. History does not need to repeat itself in dramatic fashion to stir old wounds. Sometimes it whispers in familiar patterns. That whisper, insiders suggest, ignited something deeper than disagreement. Behind the scenes, Catherine is said to have stood firmly by William's side. She understands the emotional architecture of his loyalty. She understands that Diana's memory is not simply public heritage, it is private inheritance. Her quiet support reportedly strengthened his resolve, reinforcing that this was not impulsive reaction but principled defense. Public empathy added pressure to an already fragile situation. The narrative of a son defending his mother resonates instinctively. Support swelled in commentary and conversation. That amplification did not create William's stance, but it fortified it. He is no longer merely preserving memory, he is shaping royal history in real time. This moment underscores his evolving role. He is stepping into guardianship not only of tradition but of moral continuity. Diana's legacy is intertwined with the monarchy's modern identity. Attempting to shift that anchor without his consent may have misjudged the depth of his commitment. And as tensions simmered, the question became unavoidable: who truly controls Diana's legacy? This wasn't just about a statue. It was about power, about the past colliding with the future, about a monarchy attempting to modernize while still haunted by its most beloved rebel princess. William's warning signaled more than frustration, it signaled change. And perhaps, for the first time, the balance of emotional authority inside the royal family began to shift. At its core, the moment exposed a symbolic clash between the old guard and the next generation. The traditional architects of the monarchy have long believed that progress requires careful editing of history, softening sharp edges, smoothing uncomfortable chapters, guiding public focus toward stability. But William represents something different. He does not seek to erase the past in order to strengthen the future. He seeks to anchor the future firmly in it. And that difference is seismic. By drawing a line over Diana's statue, he stepped decisively into moral leadership. Not through proclamation, but through conviction. He demonstrated that emotional legacy holds weight equal to constitutional authority. The public noticed. Royal loyalty, once measured by adherence to hierarchy, is increasingly defined by authenticity. And in that shift, William's stance resonated deeply. He was not merely protecting a monument, he was protecting a narrative that millions still hold close. The crown now finds itself balancing delicately between continuity and evolution. Too rigid, and it risks appearing disconnected from modern sentiment. Too reactive, and it risks appearing unstable. This incident sharpened that tension. Every decision reverberates across generations. Camilla's position, though firmly established, cannot ignore the long-term implications. Legitimacy within monarchy is rarely permanent. It is continually negotiated through perception and trust. A misstep involving Diana's memory risks unsettling that equilibrium. And yet Diana's legacy refuses to diminish. It is not confined to statues or ceremonies. It lives in public expectation, in charitable values, in the emotional accessibility that younger royals now embody. Attempting to sideline that influence would not erase it, it would amplify it. William understands this instinctively. His defense was not reactionary. It was strategic in its own way, rooted in the awareness that the monarchy's survival increasingly depends on emotional intelligence. This moment may well define the trajectory of royal leadership moving forward. The institution cannot afford to appear indifferent to memory. It must demonstrate that modernization does not require erasure, that honoring the past strengthens credibility rather than weakening it. William's warning illuminated that truth with unmistakable clarity. What remains uncertain is whether this episode leads to reconciliation or deeper fracture. Internal unity is essential, yet unity built on suppressed tension rarely endures. The monarchy stands at a crossroads where power is not only inherited but interpreted. And as generational authority continues to shift, the decisions made now will echo for decades. Because sometimes the most powerful battles in a monarchy aren't fought in public, they're fought in silence, over memory, legacy, and who gets to decide what remains standing. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.